What's going on, 49er faithful, 49er fam, 49er gang? This is your boy Niner Gang Podcast back in the building. So definitely hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, turn on the post notifications so I keep you up to date on any and everything San Francisco 49ers. With that being said, let's get right on into it. So this week in football, week 8, we had ourselves a nice little tumultuous time when it came to week 8. And what went on. So let's take a look at it and see exactly what happened this week in the NFL. So we started last Thursday off with a beatdown. They got the smack laid down on their candy ass when it comes to the Chargers versus the Vikings. The Chargers put a 27-point beatdown on the Vikings. 27 points, people. It was 37-10. They beat the brakes off of the Vikings. The Vikings only scored in the first. The Vikings only scored in the second and third. They did not score in the first or the fourth. And when you take a look at this game, you can just see exactly what happened. Carson Wentz, 15-27, 144, 1 TD, 1 interception. This is the big number right here, y'all. 5 sacks from that Chargers defense. 5 of them. So that means that Carson Wentz had no time to breathe in that pocket. He couldn't even think. And what happened? You wind up with a situation like this. You have to take that L because you can't stop that defense. That means your offensive line has got some work to do. The Minnesota Vikings rushed for 34 yards. 34. And this tells you that the rush defense for the Los Angeles Chargers was very stout because they had Aaron Jones. They still have Jordan Mason. I don't know who Xavier Scott is, but they had him too. So basically, it tells you straight up that the Chargers defense was just real in this game. They literally, you only have 5 receivers that touch the ball. Just 5. You had Ladd McConkey, Arondé Gadsden, Keenan Allen, Kamani Vidal, and Trey Harris. Literally, that's it. Justin Herbert, 18-25, 227 yards, 3 TDs, 1 interception. He did take 2 sacks as well. But when you have just 5 people that you hit, and 3 out of those 5 get TDs, that bodes well. You know what I'm saying? Kamani Vidal, 23 for 117, 1 TD. So he didn't look too bad. He was doing his thing. You know what I'm saying? Justin Herbert, 7 carries for 62 yards. If you notice, now that Jim Harbaugh is here, Justin Herbert's been running a little bit more. He's been using his legs. And you got to remember, Justin Herbert came out of Oregon. So in Oregon, they use just about any and everything. It's always like that. So you come over, you take a look at the sacks. For Minnesota, the sacks came from Jonathan Greenard and Jonathan Allen, which kind of makes sense. Those would be the 2 dudes. And then you come over to the defense for the Chargers. Justin, I'm just going to say Justin because I don't know how to say the last name. Then you got Odafe Owe. You had Tuli Polutu. Then you had Khalil Mack with a sack as well. So, you know what I'm saying? Justin got in there twice. So you see that there's 5 sacks, 7 TFLs. You even had 7 passes defense. Of course, you had the interception by R.J. Mickens. You come down, you take a look at the kicking. Cameron Dicker was 3 of 4 on his field goals, but he was 4 of 4 on his extra points. So even if he makes that extra field goal, it really doesn't matter. Him missing that one didn't really make a difference. It just would have put him at 40, and then it would have been a 30-point beatdown instead of 27. So it is what it is, man. Chargers take the dub, and they did not play. They came back and beat the brake. They came in and beat the brakes off of Minnesota, man. Basically told you, we the Chargers. They bolted up, baby. So you move on to the next game, and this one is very interesting because I thought Tua was benched, but randomly he starts. This is the Dolphins versus the Falcons. The Dolphins versus the Falcons. This is another beatdown. This is smackdown laid on that candy ass, 34-10. So you got beat by 24 points by a team that nobody thought was going to do anything for the rest of the year because they have just been horrible. But the Falcons have dropped one to us. They dropped this next one. They only scored in the second quarter and in the fourth quarter. And right now it looks like Kirk Cousins is up to start again because Michael Penix is just not it. He's not showing them, I guess, what they need to see. But the Dolphins scored in every single quarter. And you got to take a look at the numbers to see exactly what happened. This looks to be probably one or 2 of his best games of his career. Even though the yards aren't high, he was 20 of 26. That's ridiculous on the completion percentage. 205 yards, 4 TDs, threw no interceptions, and he only took 1 sack. For the life of me, the Dolphins couldn't protect this man all year long, couldn't protect him last year, and now randomly in this game, offensive line showed up, kept him pretty clean, did what he had to do, made it happen. And then, of course, there you go. Penix was benched. Kirk Cousins started 21-31, 173, no TDs, no interceptions. He was only sacked once. But the thing is Kirk Cousins is rusty because he's coming off an injury, so there's nothing there. And I think to be honest with you, the situation in Atlanta is always very funny because when you look at it, you had Kirk Cousins on the bench paying that man ridiculous amounts of money, and you put Penix out there. And I think the only reason they put Penix out there was to see what they had and see what he could do, because at this point, it looks stupid for you to have a man that you are paying, I think, $50 million or more on, 40, $50 million or more on the bench. And you got the young guy starting and he's not doing anything for you. It just didn't add up. So you come over, you take a look at the rushing. Devon Achane, 18 carries, 67 yards. Ollie Gordon, the second, 10 carries, 46 yards. Then you got Bijan. He only had 9 carries for 25 yards. They had 45 yards total rushing. So that means that the Dolphins defense stood up and did what they were supposed to do. Only 173 yards passing from them. Kyle Pitts led the way with 9 catches, 59 yards. Of course, Jalen Waddle led the way for the Dolphins, 5 catches, 99 yards. And then, of course, there was a fumble that was lost and the Dolphins recovered. So that definitely helps them out. You come and take a look at it. The only sack was by Jordan Brooks. And the only sack for the Falcons was D. Alford. When you come down, you take a look at the kicking. Parker Romo was 100%, and so was Riley Patterson. So kicking definitely wasn't an issue here. It was just the fact that the Dolphins showed up and the Falcons did it. That's basically exactly what happened here. There's not much else to really say. The Dolphins, you got broke off. Now, this game here, congratulations. Let's give a round of applause to the Jets. They finally got a win. It took them forever, and it took them 8 games, but they finally pulled off a dub. And he pulled off a dub against the Bengals. But this was a very, very close game. The fourth quarter is what happened, and that's what changed everything. So when you take a look at it quarter by quarter, if you take a look at that, the Jets didn't score in the first quarter at all. And then second, third, and fourth, they scored. Cincinnati scored in every single quarter. But here's the thing. The Jets had an offensive explosion in the fourth quarter where they scored 23 points. And that's just an indictment on the Bengals' defense. Their defense is just horrible. It's trash. It's been that way for years. And then again, the reason the offense has been prolific was because you had Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins. You have the offense that does things. But they were always masking that the offensive line still isn't really that good. And they were always putting up so many points that they made their defense look okay. But the thing is, their defense isn't okay. Their defense is just hot garbage. And it tells you that because how do you lose to the Jets 39-38? It's no disrespect to the Jets, but as an organization, they're not necessarily run the best. And you saw them 0-7 walking in here. So it's insane. You come and you take a look at it. Justin Fields, 21-32. He only threw 1 TD. 244 yards, very pedestrian numbers for a starting quarterback in the NFL. Then you have Breece Hall, 18 carries, 133, 2 TDs. So Breece Hall showed up. He did what he was supposed to do. On the other side, you got Flacco with 21-34, 2 TDs. You know what I'm saying? No interceptions. Samaje Perine, Chase Brown, and even Flacco, they all scored rushing touchdowns. So this game was definitely competitive. It was back and forth. The touchdown passes went to T. Higgins and Chase Brown. And then when you flip to the Jet side of things, you had Tyler Johnson with a TD, Mason Taylor with a TD. But it just basically looked like everything was just working in the Jets' favor. They did exactly what they needed to do. You had 3, Nick Folk being 100%, 3 on his field goals, 2 on his extra points. Same thing with Evan McPherson. He was 100%. But at the end of the day, man, the Jets just came to play. They said they were tired of taking L's, and they came in and squeaked out a very, very close game. If you have NFL Plus, go back and watch that game. It was definitely a shocker. And this one is definitely going to be something, and I'll bring it down after that. But Browns take another L, man. They're 2-6. They lose 32-13. So this was another smackdown laid on that candy ass. You know what I'm saying? You can't lose 32-13, man. You just can't. You lose by 19 points. Like, that's bad. That's really bad. So the focal point of this is Dylan Gabriel, 21-35, 156 yards, 2 TDs, 2 interceptions. He was only sacked once. You threw the ball 21 times. You only had 156 yards. I don't understand. Like, certain numbers just throw me off. So you threw 21 times, had 156 yards. Drake May threw the ball. You threw the ball 35 times, had 156 yards. Drake May threw the ball 24 times. So that tells you to definitely, what offense is more prolific, what offense works better. 3 TDs by Drake May, 1 interception. That man was sacked 6 times and still won the game. And 5 of those sacks came from the illustrious Myles Garrett. He set himself a record in the game. And Myles Garrett turned around and said, I would trade that in if we could have got the win. But we'll talk about that in a minute. So when you look at the rushing was horrible. 68 yards in total between Malachi Corley, Quinshon Judkins, and Dylan Gabriel. And you go over to New England's rushing, they had 177 yards rushing. So they ran all over this Cleveland defense. 75 from Travion Henderson, 50 from Drake May himself, 34 from Rodamore Stevenson. You know what I'm saying? So when you take a look at this, of course, Cleveland, that's part of what's beating them down is that they can't keep up with the scoring. You come and take a look at the 2 TDs, Harold Fanta Jr. and David Njoku. That was it. Everybody else, all pedestrian numbers. Same thing for the Patriots, very pedestrian numbers, but you had Diggs who caught a TD. Keyshawn Boot caught a TD. Of course, they had a fumble recovery for the Browns, but obviously they didn't do much with it. Then you take a look at the tackles and whatnot, and that's what I stated here is you had 5 sacks by Myles Garrett, just those 5. And then you had Alex Wright. He went and got one himself. He had 11 tackles for a loss, 3 passes defense. These aren't bad defensive numbers, people. You come in, you take a look at the New England Patriots. They have, Anthony Jennings had 1 sack. That was the only sack for them. Anthony, if y'all remember, if y'all Hardaway. He's head coach of a college basketball team right now. I can't remember who. But, yeah, I remember Penny. I remember Little Penny. I remember Shaq and Penny. All of that, man. That's just dating myself. It's a long time ago. Y'all wouldn't know about that. But then again, you take a look at the kicking for New England. Andy was spot on, 3 for 3 on his extra points and his field goals. Andre Schmidt, he was 0 for 1 on his field goals, and he made his extra point. But the reason that I want to talk about this game is for 2 things, obviously. So I'm going to stop sharing the screen for just a moment. Here's the biggest thing when it comes down to it. The Browns have a problem, and the problem is named Kevin Stefanski. The biggest issue that we have with Kevin Stefanski is I don't know what the man has against Shadur Sanders. I don't know. To go back and deal with that. Like, I don't get it. I don't get what the issue is, what the problem is, or why this keeps happening. So for me, it's very simple. You can't keep hindering this kid from being able to get out there on the field. You've got to, at some point, give him a shot. Because what happens if Dylan, and I don't want this to happen. What happens if Dylan Gabriel gets hurt? You're really going to run Bailey Zappi out there? Like, right now, Kevin Stefanski has not endeared himself to the Browns fan base in any way because he's not winning. Typically, the way you endear yourself to a fan base is winning, or at least showing them you have an opportunity to win. Fans will ride with you even if you get over the hump, they're not losing by 2 or 3 points. They're getting beat down. And the biggest problem with this is the team wants your door, the city wants your door. Captain Stefanski doesn't. Now, I think that Stefanski is worried that if Shador comes in, he starts playing well, that his job is in jeopardy, that Deion's just going to jump to the NFL. Deion got his own issues over in Colorado. And there's no disrespect to him because, that's my favorite player of all time. But at the end of the day, he got to work on Colorado before he do anything in the NFL. And Colorado ain't looking so hot. You know what I'm saying? So that's his goal. That's his mission right now. That's where his focus is. But Stefanski keeps thinking, if Shador wins, then Deion's going to come and take my job. I've said this before. I'll say it again. You're going to lose your job because the team sucks. You ain't losing your job because Deion's coming. I need you to understand that part. This has nothing to do with Deion Sanders. It has everything to do with the fact that you don't want to start his son because you think that man's going to come and take your job. And because of that, you become a detriment to your team. You are now a liability versus being an asset. So for me, it's very simple. If Dylan Gabriel goes out there, lays another egg, y'all keep losing, what's the harm in putting the kid on the field to see what you got? Every coach, everybody has been coached to say what they say about Shador, and it's all negative. It's all, he's working, and, we don't see this, or we don't see that, or I don't like this, or maybe he could go here, he could do this, he could do that. All that is just this coaches speak. It's rehearsed. It basically is just leading to the fact that they do not want to put this kid on the field. And if you didn't want to put him on the field, why'd you draft him? What was the significance? This oddly enough, this reminds me of the Kirk Cousins and Robert Griffin III situation to an extent. And the only reason I state that is because Kyle Shanahan and Mike Shanahan didn't want RG3. Dan Snyder wanted RG3. Dan Snyder came down and told them, this is who you're going to draft. Because they had their eye on Kirk Cousins the whole time. Why do you think they wrapped back around in the 5th round and we got it? So the only difference between this situation is the owner didn't come down and say draft Shador. The owner didn't pick him. He didn't say, I want this kid. I want him to be the leader of my franchise. None of that. But he was drafted. And to be honest with you, if you're not going to give that kid an opportunity, man, let him go. You could cut him, put him on another team, let him go somewhere else, man. And I know teams have called, I know the Ravens would have loved to have had him there right now just for this time being where Lamar is out and they got to hope and pray that they can try to get back into things, because if they don't and their season's already over, what's the significance of putting Lamar on the field if you ain't going nowhere? You're not into the playoffs, and I wouldn't even play Lamar for no reason. Excuse me. But the other thing I want to touch on is Myles Garrett. Myles Garrett came out and said, I traded every sack I got just for a win. I'm going to say this as respectfully as I can. No one feels bad for you, Myles Garrett. No one. You made a decision. You made a conscious decision to stay in Cleveland because they put that money up. I liken this to many different situations, but the number one situation that I can always remember and that I will always bring up is Steven Jackson. He used to be a running back for the Rams. And everybody knows who Steven Jackson is and was. Because when Steven Jackson was running for the Rams, that man was running hard. Pause. And he was obliterating defenders left and right. He was not an easy person to bring down. That man was balling. This is the time I think they had Sam Bradford as their starter. You couldn't stop Steven Jackson. But the Rams kept losing. But Steven Jackson stayed. And when he finally left and went to Atlanta, they asked him on national television, why'd you leave? He said, I got tired of losing. You didn't get tired of losing, Steven Jackson. You saw that the bag wasn't there no more. They wasn't finna pay you anymore. They had ran all the tread off of your tires. And when he left the Rams, he knew anything in Atlanta. Atlanta didn't bring him to no championships. They didn't go to no Super Bowls. They didn't do anything. They basically didn't even make the playoffs. So for me, my issue is you knew what type of organization you were sticking with. You knew what they would do. You knew what they would be. Yet you stayed because the numbers look good. See, people who want to win in this league will go where they can go to win. I'll give you a prime example. In the switch of sports, it goes to basketball. It's very simple. When you put the team together like the Lakers had, for a while, where they had Kobe, they had Shaq, they had all these dudes, you had a bunch of people come to LA just to try to get a ring. Karl Malone never won a ring in his life. Closest he came, both times, he met up with MJ. And MJ said, no, you don't get no ring. Not on my watch. But Karl Malone went to LA. Gary Payton went to LA. They both wanted one thing to solidify their careers as NBA legends. Because at the end of the day, no matter what people think in any sport, you could be one of the greatest players at your position. But when you don't have that ring, that's one of the number one things people are going to talk about. They're going to say, man, he was great. I wish he would have run a ring, though. Joe Staley was one of the best left tackles in the world. Wish we could have got him a ring. Dan Marino, one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. Literally, the reason that our current quarterback, Brock Purdy, wears the number 13 because his dad's favorite team was the Dolphins, and he was a Marino guy. You know what they remember about Dan Marino? Fantastic throw of the ball, all of that. Never got that ring. And we're the reason for that, too. 49ers are the reason that Dan Marino didn't get no ring because they came up against us and we beat the brakes off of. But I say all that to say, if you truthfully did want a ring, you would have went somewhere you felt you really could win. You knew you weren't going to win in Cleveland. You knew they weren't doing anything to make that offense any better. You know that defense is fairly solid. I mean, giving up the run that you gave, that's a lot. But at a bare minimum, Cleveland defense is not the problem. It's the offense. It always has been. And for you to sit up there and say, I'd give up every one of those sacks for a win, well, you could have went elsewhere. You could have truly held out. You could have looked at them and said, I want out. I'm not staying here where you guys are just going to keep losing and I'm not getting anywhere. Because your initial statement says, I want to go somewhere where I get a ring because I know I'm going to be one of the greats. I know when I go into the Hall of Fame, I want to have at least one of them joints on one of my fingers. But instead, you chose to stay with an organization you knew wasn't going to win. You got to use your brain on that. I'm sorry. There's nothing nobody can tell you. And there's nothing nobody's going to do. At the end of the day, you should not have stayed in Cleveland when you knew you weren't going to get a ring there. That's your fault. That's your decision. The money talked, and you said okay. So you have to live with this. And maybe when a new contract comes around, you'll go and, try to get more money elsewhere. But at the end of the day, you're going to be older, so you're not going to get the same amount of money. You're not going to have a huge bag. Doesn't matter how much you produce. The older you are, the more they want to lowball you when you're in the league. This is just part of the process. Why? Because they know there's somebody younger, faster, smarter, whatever the case may be. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not saying that Myles Garrett's going to be that guy or he's going to tail off and he's never going to do anything because he is an amazing talent. You just made a decision, a conscious decision to stay with an organization that failed you. And you knew they would fail you. Yet you said, nah, I'm good. Numbers look right. I think y'all going to do okay. And they basically sold you a lie. They told you they was going to get better. They told you about all these other things. And yet still here you are. Still with the same team. They are currently, I believe they're 2-6. They're 2-6. And it is what it is. So the Shedeur Sanders situation, just a complete debacle. Just doesn't make sense. Excuse me. Along with Myles Garrett situation. You got to blame yourself for staying there, bro. You really do. You got to sit back and look and go, was that money really worth me staying here and wasting valuable years in my career watching this team fail? Well, we can't get a win. And I can tell you right now, to be honest with you, the only way you're going to see Shedeur on the field is that locker room revolts and says, no more Dylan Gabriel, put him on the field, he's going to win. Because the minute you see number 12 come out there on that field, that stadium is going crazy. The minute he wins a game, it's over. There is no, hey, what's going on, Rick? There is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. But this is the problem. You're not doing that. If Kevin Stefanski wants to keep his job, I'm just saying this. You put the kid out there for a couple of games and see what you get from him. People make a big deal out of him saying, you know, I look across the league and I see what they're doing, and I know I can do better than that. Why are you mad because the kid has confidence in himself? See, when Tom Brady threw a fit on the sideline or he threw a fit on the field, it was he's got rage, fire, and competitive fervor, and he's so good, and this, that, and third. But then you see a same black quarterback do that, and they'll be like, you know, he gets a little out of control. You know, we're not sure why, but you know, he doesn't compose himself very properly. So Tom Brady do it, it's okay, but when somebody else does it, it's wrong. When Peyton Manning or Drew Brees or Tom Brady or, you know, any of these quarterbacks, Brett Favre, you know, with his worthless self, any of these guys get out there and they show fire. It's fire, it's competitive fervor, it's intestinal fortitude, all that. But when somebody else does it, it's like, what? That doesn't make sense. You got to give the same pass to everybody. It's the only way you're going to make that work. So I'll come off that soapbox, but, you know what I'm saying, honestly, if he goes out there and he makes mistakes, then what that does is that proves Stefanski right. So now he can say to the fans, to the organization, look, I put him out there and look what happened. You know what I'm saying? Like you can prove your point by just putting him on the field. But the fear is if I put him on the field and he does great, how do I look sitting him back down on the bench for a guy that hasn't been able to do it? And he's not looking very good. That's the hard part. So if you're Stefanski, honestly, if you really don't like the kid, you want him to fail, put him out there. But here's the problem. Some people just have that it factor. Some people who are it's built into them. Look at his father. So it makes more sense if you say, hey, I'm just going to, you know, not let this kid play because I just don't like him. I don't want him to do anything. You know what I'm saying? But if it's me and I really am trying to prove to the world, hey, there's a reason I'm not putting this kid on the field because he's just not good enough for it. He's not ready. I'm going to put him out there. I'm going to give him the same game plan I get everybody else. And when he fails, I'm going to come into the press conference and go, are you guys satisfied? Is that what you wanted? I kept telling you there were things that we were trying to work on with the kid, but y'all just decided to push the button, and everybody kept saying, put him out there, put him out there. I put him out there. Look what happened. If you really want to try to down the kid, put him out there when you know you're going up against the top 5 defense and see what he does. But Kevin Stefanski knows that's not going to happen. And he knows if he puts him out there, Shador is going to light that stadium on fire. And he's going to do some big things. He's going to make the proper throws. And he possibly could become a star. And Stefanski is not looking forward to that. If it's me, I know I'm keeping my job. If I put the kid on the field and just try. You're 2-6. You know what I'm saying? You got 9 games left. You might want to see what the kid's got. That's all I'm saying. But moving off of that and moving back into the game here, when it comes to these games, let's take a look here. So next up on the docket, we had the Giants and the Eagles. This was a great game. You know what I'm saying? Nice little battle back and forth between divisional opponents. But excuse me, at the end of the day, the Giants, they took themselves another beat down. They got the brakes beat off of them, man, by 18 points, 30-28. You know, they had a lot of issues in this game. Basically, they couldn't really get the ball moving. I mean, 14-24, 193 yards, 1 TD from Jackson Dart. He was sacked 5 times. Even Jalen Hurts was sacked 4 times. Jalen Hurts had less yards than him, 15-24, 179 yards. But he threw 4 touchdowns to the 1 TD from Jackson Dart. And then in this game, they lost Cam Scatterboot. I believe he broke his ankle. Along with them already having lost Malik Neighbors. Jackson Dart has done what you hope Shador could do in Cleveland. He's given the Giants fans something to be happy about. Kid comes out, he's got his swag and everything. He's doing this little thing out there. And, him and Jackson Dart and Scatterboo are super bros. And, they got their little bromance going on. All that stuff. That happens. You know what I'm saying? But it's a situation where you go out there, you don't look good, your number one running back goes down, you don't have your number one receiver, and at this point, it's like, who do you throw to? What do you do? You know what I'm saying? You got Wan'Dale Robinson, Devin Singletary, Darius Slayton, Daniel Bell. Nobody knows who these people are. You know what I mean? The Eagles went out there without A.J. Brown and still had 4 touchdowns. Dallas Goedert had 2. He went off. Jahan Dotson had 1. Saquon Barkley had a receiving touchdown. You know what I'm saying? Saquon Barkley for one of the first times this year had a fantastic game. That man had 150 yards rushing, 10.7 yards a carry, 1 tutty. You know what I'm saying? You take away the 65, that's still 13 carries for, just over 90 yards. So, hey, man, I mean, his numbers are true. Saquon went out there and had himself a game, probably his best game of the season, just from scrimmage. So that from scrimmage right now, that was, he put himself about, 174 and 2 tutties. Hey, man, fantasy owners are loving him right now at this moment. But when you look at it, you come over, you take a look at it, 5 sacks from the Philly defense, and this was random. It wasn't just one person. You had a sack by Zach Bond, Jalix Hunt, Moro Ojomo, Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter. All of these dudes had sacks. And then, of course, on the other side of the ball, you got your half a sack with Dexter Lawrence and Darius Alexander. Then you got Raheem Nunez, Brian Burns had a sack. Bobby Okereke had a sack. So, you know what I'm saying? The Giants defense wasn't the issue. That offense just didn't show up. Both teams scored in every quarter. Just Philly scored more. That's just simply put. When you come and you take a look at the kicking, Philadelphia, they weren't 100%. He missed one of his field goals. Graham Gano was 100%. But at the end of the day, it's just a situation where, hey, the Giants came in, they knew what they were doing. They got broke off, and it kind of is what it is on that one. That hurts. This is probably the biggest beatdown of the week. I called it upset because I thought that the Panthers had finally figured something out, but I was definitely wrong, man. I was definitely wrong. They beat the brakes off of the Carolina Panthers. This is another smackdown laid on that candy ass, man. You got to look at it. Carolina scored in the second and in the fourth quarter, but they only scored 3 and 6. And Buffalo beat the brakes off of them so bad through the first 3 quarters. In the fourth quarter, they just took that quarter off and didn't even score at all. They need to. That's just how bad it was. Josh Allen only threw 1 touchdown. And then you come and you take a look at it, but he ran for 2 touchdowns. James Cook ran for 2 touchdowns and 216 yards. He ran all over this defense for the Carolina Panthers. And I know they definitely went back and were like, dang, we look bad. We look really bad. You know what I'm saying? When you come over, you look at them. Chuba Hubbard was the only one who had a touchdown there. Andy Dalton looked like hot garbage. He was sacked 7 times. So that tells you it was definitely an issue. Rico Dowdle, very, very pedestrian game for him. 8 carries, 54 yards, 6.8 yards a carry. And then you got to drop that average down, truthfully, because he had a 24-yard carry that was long. So then that's 7 for 30. So, he's still roughly around, you know what I'm saying, about a good 4 yards a carry. So that's not bad. You definitely want your back to be average than that. But then you take a look at the receiving, no touchdowns, nobody broke 100 yards. For them, they had Khalil Shakir. Nobody broke 100 yards receiving on their end. So it looks like this was just a game where they just ran the ball down their throats and made it happen. That's basically what it was. You come take a look at the kicking. Neither kicker was 100%. Matt Prater missed one of the extra points. Ryan Fitzgerald missed his extra point, and he missed a field goal. So you could have at least gave him another 4 points and made it a little bit less than the beatdown. Instead of 31, you would have been 27. So it's definitely rough. Either way, man, that's the beatdown of the week right there. You know what I'm saying? 40-9 is very, very ugly. Then you got the Bears losing to the Ravens, 30-16. Caleb Williams, 25-38, 285 yards, only one interception. Was only sacked once, but Tyler Huntley came out 17-22, 186 yards, 1 TD. And then Derrick Henry went off 21 carries, 71 yards, 2 TDs. So he definitely did his thing. So, you know what I'm saying? When you come and you take a look at it, the Ravens didn't score in the first, but they scored in the second, third, and the fourth. And then the Bears only scored in the first and the fourth. Second and third quarters, they were shut out. So when you take a look at it just from the number standpoint, Rome Odunze, 7 catches, 114 yards. That ain't too bad. That's not it's not a negative thing. You come out, you take a look at the sacks, only 2 sacks, one from Gervon Dexter Sr. and Montez Sweat. Then you come over to the Ravens. They had that 1 sack, and that was from Mike Green. 6 TFLs, 2 passes defense. They had an interception by Nate Wiggins. You take a look at the kicking. Baltimore's kicking was 100%. And Cairo Santos was 3 out of 4 on his field goals, 1 for 1 on his extra points. That wouldn't have really made much of a difference. But a 14-point loss, that definitely that's 2 touchdowns. And if you'd just scored at least 2 touchdowns there, you'd have been okay. But it kind of is what it is when it comes down to it. So Bears take that L, 30-16. Next up on the docket, I've already talked about the Niners. They lost 26-15. Basically, this was a game, simply put, where the Niners defense showed up and the offense did not. Offense didn't get on the plane because they couldn't do much of anything in that game. The defense did everything they could to try to keep them in it, but it just was a failure. Here goes another beatdown of the week. Smack laid down on your candy ass. Buccaneers beat up on the Saints. They got them. NFC South battle, but this was just not even a battle. It was 23-3. They got beat by 20 points. Baker Mayfield, 15-24. No TDs, no interceptions. He was sacked 3 times. He got 1 TD rushing by Sean Tucker. You know what I'm saying? So there was fumbles all over the place. Both teams had to do what they had to do. Spencer Rattler, he didn't look good. Tyler Show, he didn't look good either. Both of them threw interceptions, which is bad. And then when you take a look at it, of course, you had those 5 sacks from the Bucs. You got half a sack from Logan Hall and Marquise Watts. Then you got Anthony Nelson. He had two sacks. Jacob Parrish and Servakia Dennis had a sack as well. I have no idea who that is. And then you come up, you take a look at the Saints. Of course, you had that sack and a half from Chase Young. The other half sack went to Justin Reed. And then you have your Nathan Shepard. He had 1. So kind of is what it is on that. But then, of course, you got that interception return for a touchdown by Anthony Nelson. So it tells you exactly what happened. It shows you exactly what happened. You know what I mean? The defense came to play. They did what they had to do, and they got the W. You know what I'm saying? New Orleans, I don't know what they're doing, but 1-7 ain't going to work. And at this point, they may be sellers during this trade deadline. But let's keep going with the games. Cowboys versus the Broncos. Yeah, this one didn't pan out too well for the Cowboys. Broncos beat the brakes off of them by 22 points. Actually, by 20 points. Laid a smackdown on that ass. Broncos 44, Cowboys 24. Now, one thing about the Cowboys is we know that their offense is good, but their defense is hot garbage. As you can see, giving up 44 points does not bode well for you, and it doesn't make it seem like you don't really win the game. Both teams scored in every quarter. It's just Denver scored more. Denver scored 14 in the first, 13 in the second, and 14 in the fourth. It's just how it works, man. Dak Prescott, no touchdowns, 2 interceptions. And then Joe Milton comes in, and he throws 1 TD. A little weird. But then you got Bo Nix, 4 TDs, 1 interception, 247 yards. He completed 19 passes. Then you had the rushing, 111 yards from J.K. Dobbins. R.J. Harvey had 2 TDs rushing. Then you look at them. Javonte Williams, 13 carries, 41 yards. He had 2 touchdowns. So Javonte Williams kind of pretty much did his job. He did all he could do. The 1 TD pass was to Jalen Tolbert. And, of course, you have Pat Bryant who caught 1. Troy Franklin caught 2. Nothing out of Cortland Sutton. Then you had R.J. Harvey with another receiving touchdown. This is literally just a beatdown of all kinds of sorts. The sacks for the Denver Broncos came from Jonathan Franklin Myers and Zach Allen. I love Zach Allen. That guy is amazing. And then, of course, there were no sacks on the other side. Denver had themselves an interception. So did the Cowboys. But then you take a look at the kicking. Both kickers, 100%. It's just the Broncos found a way to win and win in convincing fashion. They are 6-2 and serious contenders in the AFC West. That is a very competitive division outside of the Raiders, who are unfortunately just failing as they always do. It is what it is. So you got the Titans and the Colts. Here you go. Here's another beat down by 24 points. Smack laid down on that candy ass right there. 38-14. Tennessee couldn't score in the first or the third, and they only scored in the second and the fourth, and it wasn't enough. At the end of the day, you come look at Tennessee; they're 1-7 as well. It's just very bad. It's extremely unfortunate, and they're probably sellers with a lot of their guys because they're just going to have to keep building. To be honest with you, they need to just draft a whole offensive line because they're not able to protect Cam Ward. They're not able to give him any time. He doesn't have any weapons. Of course, Daniel Jones, 3 TDs. Jonathan Taylor, 153 yards, 2 touchdowns. How are you going to beat that? How are you going to beat that? Jonathan Taylor, honestly. So shout out to Benchwarmer Ben. He does his shorts and his videos and stuff. And he was talking about the MVP race. And one of them was something that we as true football fans know and understand. It was very simple. What's going on, Matt Moses? What's up, Throwback? Something that he was speaking about in one of the videos is very true. Of course, you have Daniel Jones there, who's doing a phenomenal job since he's been in Indy. Snatched that job from Anthony Richardson, and they looking to give it back. But here's the other thing. Jonathan Taylor is definitely making the case for MVP. But what he did in the videos, what so many of us understand and know, he's the quarterback. Guaranteed they'll give that to Daniel Jones over Jonathan Taylor all day. They just don't. I don't know what it is with the MVP, but ever since I've been watching football, they always want to give it to a quarterback rather than a defender or a running back or a wide receiver. They will give that to a quarterback every single time. Why that is, I don't know. But I can tell you this, man, it is definitely a beautiful thing. Daniel Jones is out there balling. Pittman's caught a TD. Josh Downs caught a TD. Jonathan Taylor caught a TD. So Jonathan Taylor had 3 passes. He had 3 touchdowns on his own in this game. You know what I'm saying? You come in, you take a look at the sacks. Of course, Tennessee, they got home 3 times. Roger McCreary, Draymond Jones, Tamondre Sweat got home. Then you look at the Colts, and they got home as well. Half a sack from Layatu Latu, combined with Kenny Moore II. And then you take a look at it. Defoe got 1. Gallimore got 1. Excuse me. And I'm going to call him Double A. He got 1 too, because I don't know how to say that, and I'm not about to try to pronounce it and butcher that man's name. But look at the kicking, of course. Joey Schley missed the field goal. Wouldn't have made a difference anyway. But Michael Badgley, 100% on his kicks. This just tells you, man, that the Colts are for real, and they are there, and they are not going away. AFC, you better look out. You know what I'm saying? All of you juggernauts that are in the AFC, for right now, the Buffalo Bills. What's up, Papa J? What's going on, Jet? So the Buffalo Bills, pretty much the whole AFC West outside of the Raiders, all these guys that are looking at it, I'm telling you right now, it's definitely, you better be mindful of that team. They are not playing around, and they will get after you. So the Packers get a chance to beat the Pittsburgh Steelers. Aaron Rodgers, was not able to overcome his successor that is in Green Bay. 3 TDs from Jordan Love, 2 TDs from A-Rod. But Jordan Love, 360 yards passing. A-Rod, 219. Not very much on the rushing from Pittsburgh, not very much on the rushing from Green Bay either, but Josh Jacobs scored himself a rushing touchdown, 2 TD passes, caught by Tucker Kraft, and then 1 by Savion Williams. The 2 TD passes for the Steelers were Roman Wilson and DK Metcalf. Of course, there were a couple of fumbles here and there, different things going on. When you take a look at it, no sacks by the Steelers, 3 sacks by the Green Bay Packers. You had 2 from Rashawn Gary, 1 from Micah Parsons, and that's all that you need. You take a look at the kicking. Brandon McManus better get on top of it. I don't know what he's doing, but 2 out of 4 on the field goals ain't going to work. It doesn't make a difference because they still won, but at the end of the day, you want to make all of those field goals. You don't want to have that as an issue because Chris Boswell was money. But this definitely was a nice little game to watch because you had Aaron Rodgers in there versus Jordan Love, who basically took over his spot in Green Bay. And then you had a Monday night game. This was another smackdown laid on that candy ass to the Commanders. I knew the Chiefs was going to do it, 28-7. The Commanders only scored in the second quarter. Marcus Mariota obviously is starting because Jaden Daniels is hurt. So they only scored in the second quarter. The Chiefs didn't score in the first quarter either, but they scored every other quarter. Second, third, and fourth, they did it all. Mariota had 1 TD, 2 interceptions. Even Patrick Mahomes, 3 TDs, but he threw 2 interceptions. He got sacked 3 times. You know what I'm saying? Marcus Mariota was sacked twice. You know, when it comes to the running, Kareem Hunt had a touchdown, 9 carries, 40 yards, and a tutty. Then you got Travis Kelce. He caught a touchdown. Rasheed Rice caught 1. Kareem Hunt caught 1. So Kareem Hunt had 2 TDs, and you know what I'm saying? He didn't look so bad. But then, you know, for them, Scary Terry was the only one with a TD. You come in, you take a look at it. There was a fumble, but for the most part, you know, Kansas City, Mike Dannon, George Karlaftis, who they did a nice little piece on before the game, just kind of explaining his journey throughout life, football and water polo and his grandfather and a couple of other things, you know. But then you look for the sack from Washington, you had Jerjon Newton. People, stop trying to be good. People, stop. Stop with these names. Stop. I don't even know how to even say that. This is getting out of pocket, okay? You're not being clever. It's not cool. It doesn't look right. You named this boy J-E-R''ZHAN. Why? Like, come on, man. Get it together. People with these names, I don't understand it. This reminds me of the Key and Peele skit that they did with all these weird names they have for football players. Like, come on, man. We get out of pocket. But then at the end of the day, of course, kicking didn't really make a difference. You didn't have Harrison Butker kicking any field goals. You were too busy kicking extra points. But that's basically it, man. That is week 8 of the NFL. Tell a friend to tell a friend to tell another friend. That's just a recap of the week. I'll be back a little bit later, you know what I'm saying, with a couple of shorts and things of that nature. You know, George Kittle scored his touchdown as a tight end. The tight ends did go off. They did their thing, you know what I'm saying, this weekend as it was National Tight End Day. So we just got to make sure that we keep our eyes on the ball and our eyes on the prize. 49ers currently in the 3rd spot as it pertains to standings and whatnot. So let me give you all the standings this week just for everybody out there so they know exactly what, you know, what's going on and, you know, how things are shaping up here. Let me see if I can get the standings up here. This thing's killing me. ESPN be acting funny. All right, there we go. So standings for this week. Going into week 9. Right now, you have the Patriots ahead of the Buffalo Bills. They are 6-2. Then you've got the Buffalo Bills at 5-2. Dolphins and the Jets are lowly, doing nothing. Dolphins are 2-6. Jets are 1-7. And then you go over to the AFC North. You have the Pittsburgh Steelers at 4-3. You have the Cincinnati Bengals at 3-5. Baltimore Ravens at 2-5. And the Cleveland Browns at 2-6. Then you go to the AFC South. The Colts are 7-1. Jaguars are 4-3. Texans are 3-4. And the Titans are 1-7. You come to the AFC West. The AFC West leading Denver Broncos 6-2. Chargers and the Chiefs are 5-3. And the Raiders are 2-5. You head over to the NFC East. The Eagles are leading the NFC East. They are currently 6-2. Cowboys 3-4. Washington Commanders 3-5. And the Giants 2-6. When you go to the NFC North, Green Bay Packers 5-1. Detroit Lions 5-2. Bears are 4-3. And the Vikings are 3-4. You come to the NFC South. Of course, Bucs are leading that division 6-2. Panthers are 4-4. Falcons 3-4. And the New Orleans Saints are a dismal 1-7. And then you've got the Seattle Seahawks leading the NFC West right now at 5-2, Rams at 5-2, Niners at 5-3, and the Cardinals at 2-5. So that's basically the standings for, you know, right now. If you had to take a look at it, a lot of teams are on the outside looking in. But some of these divisions are producing more playoff contenders than they anticipated. But we'll see what happens throughout the rest of the year. Once again, tell a friend, tell a friend, tell another friend. What's going on, media? Appreciate you jumping in and saying what's up. But definitely like the video, hit that subscribe button, share the video, all of that good stuff. I'm out of here. Got to get ready for work. Peace.